Spain are the 2023 World Champions. They've beaten England. Welcome to the women's final recap, presented by Symmetra. Mark Donaldson alongside Sam Marsden and Sophie Lawson for immediate on-the-whistle reaction. Sophie, let's start with you. And I think a World Cup final victory for the Spanish over the English is slightly better than a third-place finish at the Euros in 1997. Don't you agree?
Marginally. I think it's hard to gauge, but I'd say a little bit, yes.
That was the previous best achievement for the Spaniards. And Sam, this is a team that in their final group stage game lost 4-0 to Japan. It's not about how you get on during a tournament, it's how you end a tournament. What did you make of the final? Let's get some immediate reaction. And the Spaniards beating England by 1-0 and missing a penalty saved by Mary Earps. Do you think they deserved the win over the what would normally be 90 minutes, but there was 13 minutes of added time at the end of the game?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can argue with the result, really. I think Spain were the better side on the day. I don't think it was a classic final, but I think it was a good final. I think, obviously, because it was still 1-0 for so long, and then we had that 13 minutes of injury time, even though England perhaps didn't create enough, to Spain's credit, I guess, because obviously, like you said, against Japan, and even in some of the knockout games, they've shown frailties at the back. They failed to defend. I mean, they gave up 1-0 leads in each of their last three knockout games before going on to win. So for them to sort of shore up at the back and keep England out and sort of keep out that wave of England pressure late on was quite impressive. But there was enough tension still to keep you sort of gripped, and the chance, anything dropping to Lauren James or anything outside the box. We're just waiting for that one moment, but it never quite arrived for England. And Spain probably, England hit the bar early on, but I think Spain had the better of the game. They could have scored more chances. Mary Earps obviously made some good saves, including from the Di Hermoso penalty, which was obviously the reason why we had so much added on time, because it took so long for the referee to decide to award that handball against Kira Walsh. But yeah, I thought Spain controlled the game well. They've definitely learned from that Japan defeat. And looking back, perhaps that Japan defeat was, I'm a massive fan of this World Cup, but perhaps, we've spoken about it a lot, given how little of the ball Japan had in the final third. Perhaps there was an element of a freak result to the nature of the scoreline, if not the fact that they did deserve to win. But if anything, it's probably helped Spain. It's helped the players come together. It's helped them sort of shore up in transitions. And yeah, we saw them manage that aspect of the game well against England. And I don't think many people will have too many complaints that Spain are worthy winners of this World Cup.
Okay, Sophie, let's get to the goal. 29th minute. It's a giveaway by England, but still a lot for Spain to do. Now, you've got to be a special human being if you captain your country at the age of just 22. But what a couple of weeks Olga Carmona has had. She scored the winner in the semi-final in the 90th minute. She didn't even start the quarter-final, and now she gets the winning goal in a World Cup final. She is what you're looking for in a fullback.
Absolutely. I think we've seen her do it time and again domestically for Spain as well, but she made herself available for that goal, and you're maybe not expecting her to take the shot, but it was a great goal, and I think Jorge really showed a lot of faith in her to give her the armband, and that can make a lot of players stand tall, and that's exactly what's happened here with Olga.
Sam, when you look at the starting lineups, and I know we're kind of jumping here, but there is method to the madness, trust me. Was the Spanish coach making the right decision when he put Alexia Putellas on the bench, albeit she has been carrying a knock? And did Serena Wigman, the English coach, ultimately make a mistake by not starting Lauren James, who was available after a 2-game ban? I understand you want to have some loyalty to the players that have got you to the final, but ultimately Lauren James having 90 minutes to make an impact is better than Lauren James having 45 minutes to make an impact. What was your take on those two key team decisions?
Yeah, just on England, I think obviously it's easier to look back with hindsight, but I think that Serena made the right decision to leave James on the bench, and then the right decision to bring her on at halftime. I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision given the impact that James had earlier in the tournament, but the fact that England had come through those two group games without her, the fact that Toon had scored in the last round as well against Australia, I think she was right to stick with that same team, and yeah, right to rectify at the break by bringing her on. I was a little bit surprised, not so much by the Spain team. First of all, I was surprised how quickly they put the team out this morning. Obviously, you don't usually have to put the team out for an hour and before the game, and their team was out almost 3 hours before the game, which was a surprise given there was that doubt about whether Alexia would play, whether Salma Palaluelo would play. And I personally thought not necessarily that I would have played Alexia. I'm not surprised to see Alexia start. She's obviously lacking sort of that spark that she had pre-injury. But I was a little bit not surprised, I guess. But I don't think I would have started Salma given the sort of injection of sort of what she had off the bench in the last 2 games. I thought that would have been a better way to use her in the final as well, and to perhaps play Jenny Hermoso in midfield, but perhaps play Esther Gonzalez up front, and then have that option of Salma and Alexia off the bench. But obviously, it worked out well. England had to change their tactics at half-time, given how much joy Spain were creating out wide with the overloads on the left with Paraguaylo and Mariona Caldente, and even on the right with Ona Batcha getting forward with Alba Redondo. And so, yeah, you have to say Spain got their tactics spot on if England were forced to change at half-time to counter what Spain were doing.
And Sophie, I thought Spain coped really well in the second half with Lauren James coming on. I thought they had most of the control over that second half. There was all sorts of skullduggery going on. There were the dark arts. But you know what? That's part and parcel of football. And the referee potentially was a little bit lenient. It was frustrating for me it took so long to award that as a penalty. There was clear motion from the hand moving towards the ball. But as Sam was mentioning, it took about 5 minutes. But I just thought in that second half, England didn't really create much, and that's to the credit of Spain. I thought they managed that second half very well.
Absolutely. I think what we've seen from Spain this whole tournament, save for the Japan game, is how well Teresa and Aitana played together in midfield. And they really had the run of it in that first half. And even bringing on Lauren James, Spain were just on top in the middle of the park. And I think that's where most of this win has come from, to be fair, as well as the overloads up in attack. But yeah, and obviously then England start getting frustrated, loads of breaks in play. If we go back to the Euros last year, that's exactly what they were doing in the final against Germany. So it's a well-known tactic, and it's part and parcel of the game.
Sam, who do you reckon had the biggest impact for Spain in that final? Was it the goal scorer? Was it someone else? Who do you think had the biggest impact?
Yeah, I mean, Sophie touched on it there. Obviously, the midfield control they had, and I'm biased because obviously I cover the women's team here in Barcelona quite a lot. And for me, Aitana Bonmati right now is probably the best player in the world. I mean, there are obviously better goal scorers. There are probably more explosive players, but for her game intelligence, for the way she can control a game, for the way she can speed up play, slow down play, I thought especially late on and stuff, there were moments when she sort of had the ball and you thought, you could see sort of, long balls or players making runs in behind, and she just had that ability, just to that pausa, as they say in Spain, just to slow it down a little bit, because you play it long, you lose the ball, England are coming back at you. And obviously, like Sophie said, in the first half, that was key, her linking up with Teresa as well, dropping a little bit deeper at times. And then, just her control of the game. For me, she's been probably Spain's best player at the World Cup, probably the best player at the World Cup if we're looking for someone from the winning team. So I think she probably had the biggest impact for me. But like I say, with those tinted glasses on, because I watch her every week.
So that's Spain joining Germany as winners of the men's and the women's FIFA World Cup. And Sam, I want to stay with you just now because we saw the impact that England winning the Euros had in that country. It's slightly different in Spain because they've got one of the most successful teams in Barcelona. Putellas plays for them, and they're regular trophy hunters, Barcelona. But from a nation perspective, what's it going to do when the Spanish girls come back and land in Spain from Australia with the trophy? Because it's already a good starting point in Spain. But what's the next level for women's football in Spain?
Yeah, I mean, the level in Spain is very high. I mean, they've had a lot of success at youth level in the last years as well. I think they're back-to-back world champions at under-17 level. They're the under-20 world champions. Paraguaylo obviously scoring twice in that final recently. So this isn't something that's come from a bolt from the blue, even though they'd never won a knockout game at a major tournament or a World Cup before. Perhaps the surprising thing was that they hadn't done so, given their success. But yeah, obviously winning the World Cup and the media coverage that's going to create, and the fact that speaking to lots of the players throughout the tournament, especially Eleni Pereira speaks very good on this, about how these players, their generation when they were growing up, they didn't have any references, any idols. Most of them came from the men's game. If you speak to Aitana Bonmati, it's always Xavi, Iniesta, Guardiola as a coach, and now these players are the idols for a generation of players, young boys and girls, who will see them winning, Spain's first World Cup since 2010, their second World Cup ever. You've got so many players to look up to in that team, from right through the team, and yeah, it's going to have a massive impact on that side of things. But yeah, Spain. It's obviously complicated to talk about Spain because there's lots of issues with the federation and things that have gone on with the coach in the past, which make it difficult to talk about the support that the women's team have. But the infrastructure in general for Spanish football, and obviously a lot of these players have come up playing in boys' teams and stuff where there is good coaching, where there is good tactics. And I guess what you would hope now is that is just a continuing improvement at that grassroots level where they don't have to be the one girl playing with the boys' team, or you have that level of coaching, that level of sort of development spreading deeper in the women's game, and not just with Barcelona. And there are lots of teams who have invested in women's football in Spain in recent years. You look at Levante, Real Sociedad, Real Madrid. But yeah, of course, there is always more that can be done. And when you have your nation as the world champions, then you would hope that a lot of teams will sit up and start investing even more.
Sophie, same topic, same question for you. And I don't think, look, obviously it mattered. They would have loved if England had come back with the trophy and becoming the only other team to win since the men in 1966. But I'm not sure you could have asked for much more from these girls out there in Australia and New Zealand. So what happens next to the game in England, which, I mean, it's just the trajectory has gone absolutely like that, or even absolutely like that, depends on which way the camera is facing.
I think it continues on. We know that the Euros did so much to boost the international and sort of the Lionesses' interest, and we're seeing more participation numbers. It's always these types of tournaments, they change minds, and so you're not necessarily going to see an instant impact. And we know league numbers can still be low, but it's all about changing attitudes, getting girls into football, getting dads thinking, it's a sport my daughter can play, and it not being an issue. I think it takes time to see the real fruit of that labour. I think they're going to see it here in Australia as well.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.